Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I could, I could do, but I cheer. Oh, yeah, I do. Quite the crowd. Yeah. No, I like Sharp. Yeah, you even yeah, I had my first line. Okay. Oh, so you saw it. Okay. You know, I need to say. No, no. Anyway, but
I'll call this meeting to order of the Land Use and Planning Committee. We do have a quorum. Supervisor Krebs is running a little behind. He did notify me that he might be a minute or two late. So we will go ahead and proceed without him for now. This meeting was properly noticed by the clerk's office in the appropriate papers and radio stations. First, let's rise and take a moment of silent prayer and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start off with the Natural Resources Quarterly Report. Oh, wait, excuse me. I'm way off base here. We'll start with the minutes. Are there any corrections or notifications on the minutes? Seeing none, I will consider. Whoop.
No, go ahead. No.
Seeing none, then I will consider it as passed. Okay. Natural Resources Quarterly Report.
Thank you. Good morning. The only thing I really want to call out on this quarterly report is we are in Q4. So you can see a number of the yellow, kind of we're saying the year-long goals for that project were completed. And 2 were noted on track. This will be the last report with these specific goals that you see. The first quarter of 2026 will have different goals. I do just want to note that the red goal that is denoted as off track, the vegetative buffer and runoff reduction program. So when we had our Parks and Trails manager resign and we kind of had to restructure job duties a little bit, this was one of the program initiatives that basically was tabled in terms of bringing forward any new program ideas. And so at this point, we are not working on that program. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have related to this update.
Any questions on the update by the committee?
Yeah.
Supervisor Mary first.
Yeah, Jamie, what's happening with the filling of that position?
It was eliminated in the 2026-2027 budget. Restructured.
Yeah, restructured. All right.
But the head count was eliminated.
Okay, Chairman Schleif would like to chime in. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So that red goal has to do with vegetative buffers and runoff reduction, which goes to clean water. So do you have an idea when we'll untable it and work on it?
Yes, so we're looking at talking about our goals again internally, and our county conservationist sitting behind us, Paul Backus, along with our land use manager. I do know they have some ideas about how this could possibly look, given kind of new resources. We are also bringing on board a new employee right now, Michael Zawicki, who was our water health specialist, also recently left the county. So as we kind of build that forward, we'll be talking about if we're going to introduce any others. This was specifically more in the land use area, related to lakes and, demo plots and trying to start something up with vegetative buffers kind of around the lakes and promoting those ideas. So it isn't something that we are giving up on. It's just currently off track. We have not developed it the way we were hoping to.
So it has more to do with lakes and less with agriculture.
It does. In the future, it could potentially be more together.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that? All right, seeing none, we shall move on. Next item of business is the update on 2025 Resolution 35 Advisory Resolution urging the Wisconsin legislator legislature to amend the Wisconsin Administrative Code flood storage, flood fringe regulations to protect personal property rights. And I take it you'll be taking that one.
Yes, we just wanted to kind of include the latest update. So this was a little bit of success following the good work and the resolution signing that our board did. We had the DNR reverse the flood map or change and modify the actual flood maps for the Druid Lake area. So it solved some of the immediate questions for the homeowners. So that was a big success. That article that was talking about that was included in your packet. It did not necessarily change or solve some of the legislative questions that we were raising in our resolution. Those points still exist. It is currently in the state's hands with regards to, if any movement is made in any of those areas. So at this point, we're continuing to monitor that position. But this was a really nice step forward. And so we wanted to make sure we were sharing that. Any questions? I know Brett is here as well.
Okay, questions from the committee? Supervisor Pridemore?
I just want to make a statement that I really appreciate what Brett was doing for us in the Lake Druid Committee. So we just want to say thank you very much. You put a lot of work into this. Thank you.
Very good. Supervisor Mary?
Just a comment and observation. I hope that the homeowners there appreciate the efforts that the county put into, and they realize that we were behind them all the way on this. And I think this is a good example that it does do good for the public to become vocal. They got united and came to this group with a united front. And I guess it just goes, it can work. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments from the committee? And I too will take a moment to really congratulate the homeowners of Druid Lake as well as this committee for coming together in your outstanding work and leadership along with our staff. These things really made a big difference. All of us working together has just been fantastic. This is what good government looks like. So very proud moment. You should all be very proud. I know I am for this. This was it's not necessarily resolved, but I think it's a major win. So very good, very happy for the people of Druid Lake. All right, we will move on to the Heritage Trails Mountain Bike Park Trailer Building Process and Procedures. Ms. Ludovic, you taking this?
Sure. Thank you so much. So I want to say a little over a month ago, we had some constituent concerns that came forward regarding some of the work that was happening in Heritage Trails County Park, being inconsistent with what we had talked about as part of our Heritage Trails Master Plan, but also as we had kind of agreed to in terms of what new trail building was going to look like in the park. So I think a very positive outcome from that correspondence is that we were able to step back with Metro, with our partners, take a look at how we can get better organized and really take the MOU and put it into a kind of working practice in terms of what we expect as a more mature trail system and a more to help us kind of realize our vision together as, a premier mountain bike park. So we have outlined, and this is still a draft form, it is working forward, but we have outlined kind of our thoughts around what trail building procedures would look like moving forward in terms of how we implement the park master plan. I want to say that I think that this is really important, especially given the next couple items on this agenda, where when we start to look at injecting funding in some amounts to this work, we want to make sure that we're all in agreement and in alignment with what work is happening and how we're sustaining the maintenance out there. I know that was a concern of Supervisor Krebs when we were out there related to, we are building this stuff, but we have to continue to make sure we're maintaining it as well. And there's costs that are associated with that. And so we even have talked and are still talking about, I think right before the meeting, we were talking about trailblazing related to new software deployment for tracking the volunteer waivers as well as tracking the trail checks in terms of kind of maintenance rides and how we're monitoring and making sure that we're delivering the services that we're potentially going to be looking at having our users pay for. So this is in your packet. Happy to take any feedback you have at this point. Again, it's a draft. It's still subject to change, but we wanted to share it with you. And given the recent communications from the neighbors, really give you an opportunity to comment on anything you like, don't like, would like to see differently as we move forward. This is relatively operational in terms of how we're building the trails in the master plan, but wanted to get your feedback on this anyway. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
All right, questions from the committee, Supervisor Pridemore.
Lights. Will there be more lights than with these trails? They're gonna be affect us, the one neighbor lady that was talking about the lights.
Yes, yes. So there were some additional recent communications about night riding. We have correspondence from April of 2023 regarding those concerns, where then we brought it forward to the committee. Was determined that we would stick with the park hours for riding. We then further clarified that in the plan adopted by the county board. It is an issue this time of year in particular. So we are not changing the park hours. Night riding will be permitted from during the hours of park operation. That said, the process we have outlined does give an opportunity when a trail is being constructed with the neighbor notification for them to express that concern with regards to angles or turns or light onto property, of which that would be an example where, and I know their representatives and I have talked about this, whereby we may not address every concern that gets brought forward, and we may say, no, night riding is permitted. However, if it makes sense, we are going to make an effort to, buffer or potentially change an angle or an elevation when we could going forward, because of kind of that outcome of the first trails that were constructed. And that actually reinforces the reason why having a process is so important, because there was actually another trail segment that was redone parallel to the neighbor in question, that did not follow our process, and therefore it did not have that opportunity to have that type of dialogue, which is what we expect. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we are not looking at changing the park hours.
Thanks.
Okay, Supervisor Conrath, I saw you up there.
All right. Thank you. I have a question regarding this contract that we have with them, like say specific quality metrics that we might be tracking to ensure that they're, following beyond in good faith our agreements. We need
Yes.
to define those.
Yes, 100%. That is the same question we have been talking about this month with regards to not only this process, but also if you see the footnote that says, there's two footnotes on the process. One that says, we need to figure out a way in the annual checks to make sure that the maintenance recommendations are also being worked on. So we already have a list of bulleted items from our IMBA assessments that talk about some of these things that they would like to see going forward in certain features and obstacles. So we need to do a better job of tracking maintenance recommendations, putting together maintenance plans in terms of spends and the dollars being allocated to that. The footnote that says the new maintenance inspection schedule that's being developed, volunteer tracking, and then applications being rolled out to basically tie the performance of the maintenance to any funding that would accompany that. I mean, I think when we start, right now we are operating under a volunteer-based model. And so our MOUs and our agreements will change to that tune. They will include the performance that we expect specifically.
All right, thank you. And then say, once we have those quality metrics defined, the reporting back to this committee, would it be like, say, quarterly, biannual? Or is that, do you have thoughts on that yet?
Well, I mean, the metrics that I'm thinking about are you're either completing the maintenance checks on time and performing the maintenance, or you're not. In terms of that, and then additionally, you're following the process and building what you say you're gonna build. It's not as though we are evaluating their performance necessarily, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah, we're evaluating their, commitment essentially to the contract, the agreement with us, and that's what needs to be measured. I don't know if we add in, say, concerns or complaints too raised by, local citizens or constituents, or, maybe something too with our local fire and EMS, as a quality metric. When there's an emergency type situation and how that was handled, or how many emergency type situations are occurring. To look at risk mitigation.
That's a great point. We can take that feedback.
Okay, Supervisor Mary?
In the same line, Supervisor Conrad's question, I know going back a month, many months ago now, there was concern about the safety and response of emergency vehicles to get there in a timely and proper manner. Has that been a problem, or have we had, is there a record of calls, emergency calls, injuries and so on? Have we been where we thought we would be, above, below? I'm just curious. Maybe that question's out of line, but or not in order, but I'm just curious as to what has been the status of the emergency calls at the
I can get an updated report for you in the last 12 months. I do not have that. I know personally of one that came through at a higher level in terms of notification from the sheriff. So we do have an established procedure to make sure we're communicating internally. So one was at that level. That does not include, I fell off my bike, my mom took me home,
Oh, right.
anything that would potentially be of a lower level call. And that doesn't mean there wasn't one we weren't aware of, but we can get that information. We did also, since we spoke about this last, execute our MOU with Slinger Fire Department regarding our ongoing support for their training exercises and their safety access routes, including their their Flight for Life landing pad and their practice of those procedures regularly at this park. So we have that pretty well established, as well as our funding commitment for equipment and PPE needs that they have. So that was a part of what we heard in the plan approval. So no new concerns other than they too were not made aware of the trail construction and opening of trails that happened without notification. And so that is part of what we need to make sure that does not happen. Because that is not supposed to happen.
Thank you, ma'am.
Supervisor Krebs?
What happened with the trail that was constructed without notification?
It's currently closed. It's going to follow these procedures.
So it's gonna go back and start over, and
Yes, so
it's kind of hard to undo things
yes.
once they're built.
it is difficult to undo, but we're still gonna go back and have all the conversations, check all the boxes. And if there are things that come forward, erosion issues or fire access issues, they will need to be addressed before the trail gets opened.
Okay. Are there, besides redoing that one, are there any other trails that are expected or anticipated to be constructed in the next year? Cause that double asterisk at the end said the maintenance inspection schedule and volunteer tracking is all, that's more than a year out before it would be the deadline for it. I'm wondering if before we build more trails, if that could be a priority to make sure that that's taken care of before, you know, they get the volunteers to just build all summer. I don't know if it's anticipated build any or build 5 of them. You know, I don't know what the aggressiveness is. So I would like to kind of take care of some of the housekeeping stuff before we just let them keep going. If that makes sense. Doesn't say it in here, and I'm not sure where it falls under county code. But with trail construction, do we have to obtain any permits? Or does Metro have to obtain any permits? I thought we're exempt from a lot of code, but we still should be following our own codes. I'm not sure if if we're in a shoreland district at that property or not. Stuff like that, like, you know.
Yeah, the wetlands,
I'd like to
shoreland,
kinda
that,
see some of that stuff added to the checklist to make sure that we're following the rules that we've set forth for others.
yeah, we can add that. And it's in here a little bit with regards to the features. Because I know that was a question with Gunslinger where we had IMBA come in after the fact to evaluate the building structure and then produced a list of recommendations of it's okay, but here's how it could be better. And we need to have those recommendations on the front end before things are built. So that building, I don't want to call it building inspection because it's more of a trail inspection piece, really will happen in the checklist feature by feature. There are some things that just don't necessitate that level of oversight, and other things that it might make sense to actually obtain a permit or a third party engineer's approval before constructing.
Okay. Last thing in here, it said that the neighboring properties, I want to get the wording right. For at the start of new construction, the neighboring residential property owners and the sheriff's department will be notified of the trail walk date. Which neighboring properties are we notifying? Just the ones that email on a regular basis, or are we going off? A certain radius?
Well, I laugh, but only we do have those emails. So definitely those emails because they are easily accessible.
What responsibility is it for us to maintain a current valid email list? You know, that instead we could just do a class 1 notification in the paper and call it a day. And I don't know what the right answer is here is, and obviously it's a courtesy for us to notify these neighbors, but I don't want them calling later saying your email went to spam and I missed the walkthrough. You should have knocked on my door.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
We're gonna make sure they know. To be clear, there's only a handful of neighbors. So Double Dragon's return is,
That are directly adjacent, but what about the neighbors 2 properties away or 3? How far out are we going with this is my question, because it just says neighboring residential property owners. I in Hartford am a neighboring residential property owner. I'm in Washington County.
adjacent parcels.
Okay, there we go.
All right. Any other comments or concerns? Or I lay out my own? So the parks and trails, this mountain bike trail, as I see it, mountain biking is fun, exciting, and certainly has a certain amount of risk to it. That is kind of built into it. I like the whole idea of getting this document out that we're all on the same page when we're going to get the work done out there. I would like to see the neighbors notified at a timely basis. You know, but I agree with you, Supervisor Krebs, that I don't want to get too far out into, you know, knocking doors, you know, or stuff like that. But I would like to make sure that those emails, if they're taking the time to send us an email, then certainly add them to the list. And I think that would suffice, and try to make sure we're giving good, proper notice that, hey, tomorrow or whatever, we're coming in and we're doing this, I'd like to see a certain amount of time, maybe staff, you guys can develop you know, just how much notice. I'd like to see more than just a day or 24 hours. I mean, let's try to keep it something reasonable where if they have a concern or an issue that they can actually respond in a timely manner to staff. But other than that, I'm pleased with the document. I think it's a good step in the right direction for making sure that we're all on the same page. We want at least the best mountain bike trail that we can put together. I do understand. I don't want it to be choked off by, you know, getting bogged down in a bunch of legislation or whatever. But we do have to have a cool set of rules to make sure that we don't end up with a safety violation or, you know, something that we could have prevented, or a bunch of neighbors that are complaining or stuff like that. So I'm glad to see this. This is a great step, and hopefully with what we put in our input today, this will give us a good final document. So you'll be bringing that back, Ms. Ludovic, or is that you just gonna kind of write it from there?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on bringing it back. It was a discussion item. We'll take the feedback we've garnered and we're gonna hopefully look at moving forward.
Great. I am totally yes with that. Okay. Report Heritage Trails Youth Skills Park naming.
Yes, thank you. So this is also a report. We have within our department I want to make sure everyone's aware because from time to time the committee does change. We have kind of an overview policy. It's called our naming and sponsorship policy, which has kind of set the guidelines for how we name and how we do sponsors within our properties and our departments. And $50,000 is sort of the mark, or if it's an entire park, or if it's kind of a land item that hasn't already been approved, a donation of land, for example. In this particular case, we are talking about naming the youth skills area, the learn to jump, learn to drop area, for a donation to Metro in the amount of $25,000 plus signage over 5 years. So our policy also requires that every name has an agreement on file with Washington County. So the reason for that is really the expiration. It's a kind of a marketing and advertising, and we control, it is our land, it is our park, so we would then control the name itself. So in this case, we are looking at doing that. I know Tom Hartman from the Metro Board is here if you'd like have any detailed questions about this, but I just wanted to make sure we were sharing that we plan to name the learn to jump area, the skills area, which is one of the next items up for construction out at Heritage Trails. And we'll follow this process as well. But there is a sponsor interested in that, making a donation to Metro for that naming right. So that was just kind of really an FYI item, but happy to answer questions if anyone has any about that or that value compared to other values.
Any questions from the committee? Okay. Kudos, Tom. Awesome. Love to see it. I'm all about naming anything. The Dennis J. Kelling Memorial Trash Can. I'm good with that. You know, I think it's a great opportunity. It's a good advertising space. We've talked in the past about this kind of thing, and I'm certainly open. I won't speak for the rest of the committee, but I am absolutely 100% open to it. Love to see it. It's good for the business community that works, you know, bikes or related accessories. And it's certainly good for the public and our park system. So great job.
Yeah, we have another one, Dennis. Yeah.
If you want to step up, you can come speak on it real quick if you'd like.
Yeah, so anyway, thanks for having us here. I'm Tom Hartman. I live in Washington County and I've been leading the project for the last 4 years, the Heritage Project. But anyway, we have another donor that's committed to $10,000. We're not quite sure if he's just doing it as a sponsorship, or we have a hand-built blue trail on the east side of the parking lot that you guys approved in the master plan. And it might be an opportunity there. It's a foundation, a mental health foundation, to also offer the naming rights for that to them for $10,000 a year for so many years. So anyway, I just have to work out the details on that. So there's another opportunity there, Dennis.
That would be, that's awesome. Again, kudos
Yeah,
on that. And, you know, we'll look forward to you bringing that to
Yeah.
Jamie and we'll get the updates when they're ready.
all right.
Thank you. All right. Now we'll get down to the meat and potatoes of this. The NRD Pilot Heritage Trails Mountain Bike Trail Pass.
Thank you. So what you have before you, NRD Pilot 26.1, 2026.1. I actually thought this was 0.2 because we recently did a pilot for the golf course. If you remember that, we executed something. We kind of came back at the end with surveys and dollars collected and feedback, and then brought that forward. So in this particular case, Metro Mountain Bikers brought forward a proposal about adding a per rider trail pass for the mountain bike park. There is a lot of feedback that the park offers a tremendous amount of value, and that there's an appetite to pay more in order to have it built or have the park built. We took that, we did our own analysis. The Office of Budget Policy and Analytics assisted us in kind of analyzing it. I don't know if you remember the budget you just adopted, but our park entrance fees are substantially projected to decline in 2026 and 2027. 2025, we saw a lot of our user revenue decline, and it was a tough year, which is ultimately what developed into the recommendation we talked about earlier to not fill our vacant position. Because that was we were talking about $100,000 or so worth of lost revenue. And so in the analytics, there was concern about the negative impact on the park entrance fees as well as the users. Now, with our current system, it's difficult for us to see the difference in the annual fees by park. We only have our daily fees, which declined at Heritage Trails substantially in 2025. However, because there's a hypothesis that many of those users converted to annual. But with the declines we saw in annual, we were unable to substantiate any sort of evidence that would lead us towards increasing fees. And so in that analysis, what we discussed and the recommendation coming out of Budget Policy and Analytics was to deploy a pilot, a suggested per rider fee pilot program that would hope to address some of these questions, as well as the appetite and kind of how it will go type feedback. So what we are now proposing, and there is some risk associated with this pilot, which is why it is posed to you to approve or deny the pilot today, that we would be recommending the pilot program and the suggested per rider fee. We have spent a good amount of time talking about how the feedback loop would work in terms of how we would deploy it, how we would get and take feedback, and how that communication would look, noting that it would be sort of a pilot fee program that is not, again, a suggested per rider fee that is not enforced. So we feel good about kind of how it would roll out. We are unsure about how many people would pay the fee, right? And so I think that's part of some of the questions that we would be looking to answer or gather data on. We put a lot of time into what data we would want to gather from people and how that would look and feel. So happy to answer any questions about how it would be deployed or what questions you have about the projections. I know Metro Mountain Bikers have a thought about how much money it could generate. I think you see the county with a little bit more skepticism in terms of if that will materialize in those amounts based on our experience. But definitely, I think something that we all feel might be worth trying to see if this is a tool that would both fund the development of the mountain bike park, the trails, as well as the park. And we have outlined on the draft pilot website that we would be looking at spending money. So part of the pilot would be needing to figure out how the collected fees are actually deployed to Metro for the trail builds and for the maintenance. We've started some conversation about that in terms of kind of the concern that Supervisor Conrath brought up of, at some point, somebody needs to pay for the replacement of the wood to the rotted wood. Somebody needs to pay for the replacement of the markers. Somebody needs to, pay for some of the features that were already built. And so as we mature as a trail system, how we're putting in place that 5-year, 10-year, 15, 20-year sustainability plan for both the rebuild of the existing trails that are out there as well as the future trails. So think about our Parks 2050 plan, but for the mountain bike trails. And also think about the park infrastructure that we know we don't have funded in our 2050 plan. In this particular case, immediately we are looking for asphalt maintenance dollars. We are looking for potentially improvements to the restrooms or gathering space out there. So while we work through how, if and how much money is collected, and then what plans are needed to, and agreements are needed for that, essentially we are stating that the pilot project fees would go essentially to 3 things, which I wanted to say this on the record, Tom. First, to pay for the costs to stand up the program. So those include signage, tags that will be mailed to bikers, postage, taxes. This is a taxable fee that we have to collect and deploy. So on 5 riders, you're looking at about a $10 tax that we have to pay, as well as credit card fees that are associated with our online payments, which is about 3%. So off of the $20 sticker, there are costs that come out right off the top of that, making the net less. Second, we would look at funding, making sure that there's funding provided for the youth skills area, followed by Double Dragon in terms of the work that Metro wants to see in the immediate plan, as they're also working on sponsorships and other revenue streams. And then the other thing that is on my mind to fund, if this materializes into a larger dollar amount in year 1, would be a full park plan for this park. So what we, as well as consideration for kind of our own 2050 planning effort. We have a mountain bike plan, but we do not have a location for restrooms. We do not have, pit toilets. We do not have utilities. We do not have gathering space out at this park. So some of those things we have heard actually that those were actually top priorities of the users in the trail planning process. So as well as the ongoing needs of kind of the public safety efforts and the events that are structured out there. So I'm going to stop talking. But that's really what you have before you, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Wow. Okay.
A lot, I know.
That was a lot. Okay, questions from the committee. Supervisor Pridemore.
When was the last time that you guys even raised up any of these passes? Or was there at any other time?
The annual entrance fees?
Yeah, with the ones that you want to, like the daily trail pass, the annual pass.
They went from $5 to $7 and the annual saw increases not in the last biennium.
Okay.
Mhm.
You're talking the entrance fee.
Not in this, so there were no increases that in the budget you just approved, but there were increases in the prior year biennium where we went from $5 to $7 and then
Okay.
So the second half of the last budget.
It doesn't really seem that much of a hike. I'm looking at this.
These are all new fees that you're looking at.
Oh, those are all new fees? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
yes, Yeah, 100%. Those are all brand new
Oh, okay.
that you would pay that on top of. So the way we talk about it in our office is you think about our annual stickers and daily stickers as parking fees. So now we're going to, so this is, if you think about it that way, you will pay to park in the park, you will pay to get in, and then you will pay for the amenity. So think about like Noah's Ark, right?
Mhm.
You pay to park and then you pay for the admission.
Well, it's
So
like a Brewers game, right?
yes, so that is the model that we are trying. We have talked about a number of different models that could generate similar revenue streams and potentially facilitate enforcement. But we are kind of looking at this model as proposed by the mountain bikers for the variety of reasons that you see in the packet. And then I think we're going to get feedback, and I think we're going to look at that feedback.
Any other questions? Supervisor Krebs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Jamie, thank you. You answered quite a few of my questions, to start with. Just wanted to confirm in the letter where there's pricing in red print, is that kind of where you think you're gonna land on for the fees for this trial period?
Yes,
And then what was the part about taxes with that? What?
I found out yesterday we have to
Sales
pay,
tax or
yes,
something?
I found out yesterday we have to pay sales tax for services provided.
Okay, so
So it's,
those are charged to the user. We're gonna include the tax in those numbers and
yes.
take them.
So the amount that is how we handle our entrance fees so that it's like a flat amount. So the user sees $20, it's $20, but it's actually 1876 and then we apply the taxes to the transaction to equal $20 or don't quote me on that number.
Yeah, and then this is, the money generated by this will be put in a segregated sub-account of the Parks Department, so we're gonna keep this in its own piggy bank.
Yes, it is being earmarked as a donation to, well, it's a donation account, but it's a separate account that will be in the Heritage Trails Cost Center and subject only to use at Heritage Trails.
Okay. And the enforcement of it is the honor system at this point?
Yes. And yes,
At some point in the future, that conversation could re-pop up if there's a need for it, but at this point, it's just probably peer pressure of the users to monitor each other and educate each other on it.
yes, I think Metro does plan to have some volunteers that help educate about it. And the visibility of the branding is another component of that. But we are proposing that we state that it is a suggested per rider fee.
I would look forward at the end of the trial period, similar like the golf course, how we looked at how all those comments were compiled and given to us. That was interesting reading those, and so I would look similar for something like this to see what the feedback is on it, so. Thank you.
Any other questions? Then I'll chime in. Great point, Supervisor Krebs. This is a pilot program. So this gives us the opportunity to take a look and see what is possible. It's really, really cloudy to tell if this is going to be successful or, just kind of kill the people coming to the park, or I have no idea. So I'll look forward to getting the information back once this is gone through and seeing where we're at. And this is just going to be for this next riding season.
Yes, the pilot will be for this upcoming season. And I think that's important because as we get feedback, and we start taking those calls, we will likely prepare all of you as well with how to collect that feedback from people and what your response can be if people have questions.
I have a question about that. I saw
Right.
the word Jamie.
Tom, you can't be recognized at the moment. Supervisor Krebs?
I was just gonna chime in about collecting the feedback. I think if a lot of this is collected through QR codes and stuff, that's gonna give us a good opportunity to collect their contact data and push for that feedback from them, so.
Was that the plan? Was QR code?
Yeah, so we have a number of plans for collecting the feedback. Because if they buy a per rider pass, it is mailed to them. So we actually have the opportunity to send our propaganda with our survey code on the pilot directly to them. So we plan to do that, as well as it'll be posted at the park as well as the website. And as we send it out. So we will have both the survey, which we've developed, which talks about a variety of things within the pilot, also including a little bit into park amenities and use of funding. And then in addition to that, we've created an in-house tracking mechanism. We have an email, which will be a htpilot at washcowisco.gov. And any calls or emails or voicemails that come in through our office will also separately be tracked related to what the comment is. We believe we'll get a good amount of feedback when we send out our reminder letters for our enforcement process, because at that point, if you enter Heritage Trails and you haven't paid our entrance fee, you get a reminder. And so we may get scenarios where people pay the per rider fee, but not the entrance fee. Or we get scenarios where they have paid neither. And we have to be educating about both. And so we think that that will be a point in time, because people will come into the park, and then after that, they might pay or they might pass, right? So we want to make sure we're collecting feedback at all of those points about if there's confusion or the process and how it looks and feels.
When you're doing your pass, is there gonna be mention of it on our site or maybe in your office? So I come up, I buy my regular park pass every year. Will there be like an exception with Heritage Trails where it'll be in the regular lit? You know, hey, great, glad you're buying your park pass. However, you should know if you're looking to go to Heritage Hills, there's now a new fee or something along those lines.
Yeah, they will be made. That's a tough one for for us to get done within the timeline of this pilot. We are not necessarily linking the two passes. So there's the entrance fee and then there's the suggested per rider pass. If you go to the suggested per rider pass, you will click an acknowledgement that this is the per rider suggested pilot trail pass. You must buy the annual entrance fee, right? That is enforced. So on that end, you'll be notified. If you buy the annual entrance fees to our parks, it's a little bit harder to directly link to that per rider. We are planning to add a question about which park you most frequently visit, in order to later try to align with people who bought the entrance fee and chose Heritage Trails, and then align that with our suggested per rider data, if that makes sense. So we can try to make some assumptions about if people paid or not the per rider fee in addition to the entrance pass. Because we haven't went through the effort of changing our ordinances and making this an official law of the county per se, it is being recommended as a contribution-based model.
Okay.
I know that's a lot.
Supervisor Conrad.
All right, thank you, Chair. I just have one comment on this. I see this just as, paying a boat launch fee at Ackerman's Grove, right? You pay to, get into the park of Ackerman's Grove, and if you want to, launch your boat and, utilize that aspect, then you pay a launch fee. And I see this, just reflective of that. I think it's pretty simple in my mind. So thank you too. It looks like you partnered well too with the Milwaukee Bike Club and Tom Hartman, the board member, So I appreciate that. Thank you.
So then let me ask you this, Jamie, and I think that Supervisor Conrath raises a good point. What's the enforcement mechanism for the boat launch? Is that something similar that we could be doing here or how? I'm not sure.
So yeah, so the boat launch pass, which is done as kind of an amenity pass, so it's like you upgrade, right? You either have the regular one or you have the regular plus boat, is done per car, per vehicle, enforced with our cameras. Right. So this model is different. This was something the mountain bikers wanted to try where we're not enforcing with our license plates, we're enforcing, or it's per rider, which is more difficult to enforce. And so we are not enforcing the pilot. I mean, it's an on your honor system. We will be able to look at our enforcement from our cars entering and try to make some assumptions about, you know, whether people bought the per rider pass as well. That is an option, and we talked about that at length, with regards to it's much easier for us to continue to enforce our license plates and just change the cost of the fee for Heritage Trails, right? Make it on average, there's 4 riders, so it's another $80, and now it's, you know, and then that difference is applied. So that is a model option that we did talk about and could potentially be looked at depending on the feedback of the pilot.
So if the pilot were successful, we could possibly monetize it that way.
I think you're gonna get into how much compliance do we have with just a suggested, you know, a contribution based, you're entering a mountain bike fee area. We certainly do not want to be in a situation where we are the county or asking volunteers to be riding around in the park, you know, looking for people who are in violation of not holding a mountain bike pass. That's not what we're gonna do.
Right.
So we have to just, I guess there's a few choices depending on if it holds true, and budget policy and analytics would say that if it holds true that riders see value, they will then purchase these. When we rolled out the park entrance fee, we think we started with about 45% compliance. So it took us, you know, 7 years to get to 100% compliance. So, and based on our enforcement frequencies. So, I mean, I think you have to go into it, think, yeah, I don't know. That is part of the data we'll collect or try to collect.
Okay. I think that's fair enough. Okay, so for this, what would you require of us today?
A motion to approve the pilot mountain bike trail pass.
All right, I will entertain a motion. Supervisor Mary, seconded by Supervisor Pridemore. Any more comments, questions from the committee? All right, seeing none, then we will vote on this. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right. We will move on to item F, 2025 resolution, grant applications, lake monitoring and protection network.
I will do this. Is there any questions on this? This is routine and budgeted.
First, we'll entertain a motion on
Oh,
this
sorry.
resolution. Supervisor Mary, we'll go with Supervisor Conrath. There you go. All right.
This is budgeted. This is routine required by the DNR for our ongoing Clean Boats, Clean Waters and Lake Monitoring and Protection Network grant. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the committee?
One question.
Supervisor Krebs?
Oh. I know this is for the grant from the DNR, but remind me again, do any of the PRDs contribute towards this position, or am I mixing grant money and this invasive species grants?
Yes. So I'm gonna oversimplify this for you, but we have a aquatic invasive species program. Half is Waukesha, half is us. Our half includes a quarter of this grant, 20, a quarter, or it's a third of the grant, a third of levy, county levy, and a third from the lakes.
That's what I
Yep.
kind of was thinking. There was a split, a share of the split, but
Yep.
wanted to make sure I was still kind of thinking the same setup. So thank you. That
Yep.
makes sense.
Status quo on that.
Any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on, grant application, Transportation Alternative Program, TAP. State Rec Trails for Eisenbaum Trail Signage Replacement Project. Ms. Ludwig?
Yes, thank you. This is a 2030 project in our 2050 plan. So this is the concept here is that we are starting to get the ball rolling on what a wayfinding signage replacement project on the Eisenbahn in our portion could potentially look like. And so we are proposing we submit to the DOT for assistance essentially for the cost share and or the state rec trails program for maintenance to cost share the costs of replacing all of the signage, which is all original to the trail construction. So it kind of includes looking at, we actually did on county time inventory with some of our seasonal interns, took pictures of every sign. They're in various conditions and have various tacked up signage. And so we're looking at what they should be replaced with, what the consistency is, what's at the crossings. There's kind of an analysis piece included in this for the crosswalks. And we're trying to get the ball rolling on what this project could look like 4 to 5 years from now. So happy to answer any questions, but
Alright.
it's essentially currently projected at $140,000 project, with our cost share being about 30,000.
First, I'd like to accept our motion
There you go.
for this resolution. Supervisor Pridemore, second by Supervisor Krebs. Questions on this? Supervisor Mary?
Was this budgeted?
The match is shown in the Parks Enterprise 2050 plan in 2030. It would not be authorized funding until that biennium. So kind of planned, not authorized.
Supervisor Conrath?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have some concerns about this, whatever, this dollar amount and then the plan for this with 2030, especially with the vote that we just took on our past budget, how we don't, want to, spend money that we're not going to use for a couple of years, with the those potential amendments to the budget for the sheriff's department. And that was one main reason why they were voted down, because that money technically wasn't needed until 2027. So I'm curious about the process to get this approved through the state. Do we truly need to, approve this now? Can we, wait another year or two? Sticking with that same precedent that we just voted on last week. If you could give us a little more information, please, Jamie.
Sure. So the way that the Transportation Alternatives Program works, as well as the Rec Trails Grant, is they put together sort of their own plans and their own projection of how they're going to spend the federal money. So if you apply for the out years, they have more money available, right? Because they kind of make the plan. And it's a plan for that funding. So this resolution is required now and would essentially authorize us to apply for the grant and then work through what the acceptance of that grant agreement would look like. So we can always not take the money, right? So we can always send the money back and say we no longer want to do the project, should that be the case. In the other thing with this particular project is the amount is subject to change, because that estimate for the 26 replacement signs, as well as an additional 3 community kiosks, as well as pavement marking dollars and money for the crosswalk assessment and the signage review, was put together by what was interesting about this project is that it's like DOT and DNR. DNR has state trail signage standards. So there is a chance that we could do this project for a lot less money if we used different signage materials. So if we stick with wood and the like highway signs, which is the minimum the DNR requires, it will be less expensive, and then our match will be less expensive. We won't determine that till we do the signage plan, right? What the actual signs are gonna look like. We also could potentially install these ourselves. So this budget is really a worst case scenario. We're choosing the, lifetime. You've seen the material in the signs that are really nice. And we are having the install contracted out, and we have designed these standards, and then that would be our cost. So at this point, I mean, certainly if you aren't interested in doing that project in 2030, I would say think about that as your question. This is Parks Enterprise funding. It is planned for in the 2050 maintenance replacement plan. If you think about it that way, it's not going to commingle at all with the other budget decisions that you're making.
And if I could build on that, how it's not similar to what we were doing the other day. We were actually appropriating funds. In this case, it's more of an earmark of, in the future, we may need these funds. So it would still come back before the board for the 2030 budget. That's when you're actually going to be taxing for it. Right now, there's no actual tax or fiscal effect. It's just a matter of applying for the grant, hopefully getting the grant, and then at that point is when you're going to request the money to do the signage.
Yes, thank you for stating that, Chair. So it's on public record too, so everyone understands. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Supervisor Krebs?
Does the city of West Bend own part of this trail too? Or are we in agreement with them on something with this trail?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question. The state owns this trail. The county maintains most of the trail. The city has some maintenance responsibilities in the city. We are leading the need to replace the signs. They were original to the build of the trail, which was many partners. The state rec trails program prioritized maintenance of existing state trails. It is my belief that this will score well because the state sees ownership in this trail as well. And the cost share amount of us being at 20% is right about where we should be. It's why it makes a great grant application, because it's a state-owned trail. The city of West Bend, and it was included in my grant application, submitted support for this application, as will the Village of Kewaskum was also notified, because the community kiosk portion, which is they're going to look at downtown wayfinding in my thoughts, right? So when you get to those certain points at the trail, it really is a community project. I also talked to Fond du Lac County about their participation in design. Because although they are not partaking in this particular application, we would want to make sure if we're doing mile markers or we're rolling out new safety standards on the trail X number of years later, we're setting it up in a way that will be continuous through Fond du Lac. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's a multi-stakeholder project, which is part of the reason why those conversations all have to happen.
I guess I was thinking, is West Bend financially responsible for for a portion of this, or could they also apply separately for their portion if there is a portion? I don't know if it's a way to score more on the grant. you know,
Yeah, I mean, it's a good thought. They're a partner. They're not going to, I can tell you, they aren't looking to pay for the replacement of the signage. It has the county logo on it.
No kidding.
But
But
they
the-
definitely support this
locations-
project.
The wayfinding locations are benefiting their downtown, or whether it's West Bend or Kewaskum. I'm not picking on West Bend, but I'm just trying to, and I do appreciate your comments about even with Fond du Lac County talking about making it more holistic or more of a uniform look, hopefully long-term with the signage and stuff. Obviously we can lead this project, but are we doing it by ourselves or are partners joining us?
Yeah, and I would add to that though, building off you, Jamie, West Bend it's not like a true partnership. They wanted to get their trail, their portion of the trail. They got some money to have it be asphalted, and that's what they wanted, and that's how they kind of got on this whole thing. But it's still ours to manage. So it's, it's not like, yeah, they're gonna come up with signage or anything like that. I mean, I think their stake is largely confined to the asphalt portion.
Okay, I just couldn't remember what the actual agreements, if there are any with it.
Yeah, and if you'll recall the prior meeting where we had with Kewaskum, where we were kind of investigating asphalting, out to Kewaskum, and it was ended up being like a $2 million project that we were discussing. So it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, and just point of clarification, I know I did have conversation with the county attorney's office already about this, but I did just notice that the fiscal note on line 26, page 2, actually has not been updated. That fiscal note now should read, the grant commits the county to apply for the WTO Transportation Program Grant and REC Program Grant. The Natural Resources Department adopts, future budgets would include $30,000 for the county's grant portion. So it's correct in the resolution, but the footnote is not current. It's from the last Transportation Alternative Program grant we wrote for the bike and pet plan. So I just want to call that attention to the group now, because there is a more current version that we can circulate of that fiscal note.
Take a second. I want to just read through that. I like to see it myself. Okay. All right. So everybody got that portion of it?
Yeah, because it's 20% of the project
Yeah,
cost. So if it's
30, not
142,
18.
it's 30. It's 30.
Okay. Do we need to have that updated?
Yes, you guys should, if you're gonna pass this to the county board, you should mention that in your
Okay,
motion.
we'll have that. We'll accept that as a friendly, that it needs to be corrected. So the clerk can take note of that.
Pam.
Yeah, I got her. Okay, Supervisor Conrath?
Thank you, Chair. Just a thought, we were just talking of naming rights out at Heritage Park. And maybe we could explore naming rights also for sections of the Eisenbahn Trail to help pay for the signage.
Yeah, I can make note of that. And
Any other questions by the committee? All right, so we will be approving the Transportation Alternatives Program grant application. All in agreement, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to item H 2025 Resolution Grant Application Pre-Disaster Flood Resilience Program. I will take a motion. Motion by Supervisor Krebs, seconded by Supervisor Mary. And is this yours also, Ms. Ludwig?
I think I'm gonna punt on this one actually to our county conservationist, Paul Backus.
Always good to see you, Paul. Step on up and regale us with tales of grant applications.
How fun my life is some days, right? Well, in my world, there's kind of this term we've been using a little more frequently called like hydraulic connectivity, which is the fancy word of just saying like we want to make sure water stays further up in the watershed before it gets down to like where all the people live and starts causing flooding problems. So the plan with this study is trying to look really in depth at one particular watershed and get a better idea of where the water's going, where's it coming from, and how can we slow it down and pulling it and holding it more further up, keep it in like the wetlands so it just doesn't cause a bunch of flooding problems. So to me, the watershed that seemed like would make the most sense is the Menominee River watershed, which was hit the hardest during the August floods. So fortunately for this year or for 2026 is we're going to be getting some really, really good data. That's part of like the LiDAR project that the county's undertaking of improving our contour datas and modeling with that. So the plan is to be able to take this information, hand it off to a private firm, and they'll be able to build a study for us to potentially rank where these sites would be prioritized and where biggest bang for a buck could be of trying to do some of these projects. So this is not a plan that's supposed to be sitting and collecting dust. Hopefully this is stuff that my office and my staff will use, and we'll be able to pass on to other partners of ours to hopefully get some good stuff done out in the countryside. So that's a quick summary, and I'll gladly take any questions you may have.
Any questions from the committee? I'm not going to let you off the hook. So I'm taking it that this is kind of like when we went out on our trip to the farm there and toured that where you relocated that little creek area from the highway. This is going to be something along those lines.
Similar. What I've noticed in that particular area was there's a lot of remnants of ditching and straightening of streams. So I know I visited one site where when they straightened the stream, they took all the fill, put it off to the side. And I think the one site I saw where it was like you have the stream and the top of this material, and it's like a 5-foot difference. So when it floods, that water doesn't have the ability to go from the stream and into the wetland. It just gets forced downstream. So looking at where all these sites are, see which ones are most feasible, where I'm thinking that's going to be some of like the biggest bang for a buck in the area. Maybe not the remeandering, maybe we're just allowing that stream, that water to get out into the wetland, kind of soak in a little bit more and then slowly come back in after the storm is done, proceeded.
Well, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I believe in this case. So motioning to approve for this grant application. Oh, excuse me, Supervisor Conrath, I see you up there.
All right, yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a quick question for Paul. Some quality metric measures for this? Is there, with your engineering, civil engineering brain or environmental engineering brain?
I think the metrics are going to be this with like gallons of water that can be retained on the countryside is probably going to be the big one that I'd be looking at from like an engineering firm. And then some way of like a way that I'm going to have to kind of challenge an engineering firm is like having like cost effectiveness associated with it. Like project X could hold maybe 1,000 gallons and it would cost maybe $100 a foot, or this one could retain 2,000 gallons and cost maybe $50 a foot to do. So hopefully you're trying to compare both of those two things next to each other, that you have some way to rank and kind of try and prioritize the projects and get, like I said, the biggest bang for your buck.
Thank you.
Supervisor Krebs?
Do we have an idea what the actual dollar amount that we're applying for is? The fiscal note just says we're responsible for 25% of it.
I had a couple conversations with like local and like consulting firms, and they gave me a dollar range, and I picked $75,000 for that.
Okay.
So I think for that 25% grant match is as part of that LiDAR data project that was kind of previously approved through our Land Information Council. I'm able to utilize that 2026 dollars that the county was already planning on spending for that as some of the grant match. And then they also allow staff time that's going to be spent on potentially project oversight to this and some data collection to be used as the remainder of the match.
Cut
So-
my question right off. Good job.
So I'm able to kind of find a way to finagle this that hopefully there isn't really like a levy impact for this study.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? All right, seeing that there is none, we will vote on this. All approved, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our land use and planning meeting. Our next meeting date is December 18th, 2025 at 4:30 right here. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Thanksgiving blessings, guys.
See you, Pam. Have a good one. That skip going for you. Yeah.